Trickster, shapeshifter, and father to several iconic characters within Norse mythology, this deity was a master of mischief. A naughty boy then, who would often cause chaos on those that surrounded him. However, while his antics would put himself and others in less than ideal circumstances, his wit and cunning would ensure his survival, as well as his being able to lend a helping hand to his fellow gods, should the need and want arise. Hello, and welcome to Pantheon Mythology. Today we'll be exploring the background and life of the trickster god himself, Loki. Brought to the mainstream by the likes of Marvel and the Norse-based God of War games, Loki's representations haven't always been true to the tales told throughout Norse folklore. While Santa Monica's take on mythos is more faithful, with understandable differences for the sake of creating a game that fits within the universe, Marvel's attempts are, to be blunt, horrendous. Yeah, that's right, Marvel, you're rubbish at following your source material. Sorry, Marvel fans. This also means, for those of you that didn't know, that Loki is in fact not related in any way, shape or form to Thor. Sorry, rant over. Now, Loki. Alongside Odin, Thor and Freya, Loki is one of the four main deities of the Aesir tribe that lived within the walls of Asgard and ruled over the Norse pantheon. Different to his fellow overlords, however, was the fact that Loki wasn't too bothered about imposing order amongst the realms, but instead was a bit of a troublemaker, with erratic behaviour to boot. In fact, it wasn't crystal clear where his loyalties lay, as during Ragnarok, Loki would side with his children and the Jotnar to fight against the gods. What a lovely dad, eh? Son to giant Farbauti and goddess Laufey, Loki married the lesser-known goddess named Sigyn, and with her had a son named Nari. Not one to break the ongoing tradition of adultery across mythologies, Loki had an affair with his mistress, Angerboda, and from this infidelity, Loki's three most famous spawn were created. Hel, who would rule the underworld, Jormungandr, the colossal sea serpent of Midgard, and Fenrir, the wolf prophesied to devour the All-Father Odin during Ragnarok. Amazing genetics, I must say. Most curiously though, is that Loki himself was impregnated by a stallion called Svadilfari. And just to clarify, when I say stallion, I mean an actual horse, as opposed to, a gentleman carrying some heavy equipment, which probably would have been a little more comforting than some good old human animal loving. Although, in his defense, he did shapeshift into a mare, or female horse. From this passion, Loki gave birth to the eight-legged horse Sleipnir, who became Odin's go-to ride. As a shapeshifter, Loki had the ability to change his form and even his gender, as we've just learned a second ago, and he's been known to transform into a salmon, a flea, a fly, and of course a mare. It wasn't limited to animals either, as he could disguise himself as others in human form, similar to the Blue One from X-Men. Due to this ability, Loki rarely fought in combat, instead relying on his wit and wile. Thanks to his unique skill set, the gods would often procure his services in retrieving valuable equipment. While Loki's allegiances were often questioned, a poem can be found within the collection of Old Norse manuscripts known as the Poetic Edda, that describes how the trickster god agreed to assist Thor, who once again is not Loki's adopted brother, find his lost hammer. Now, in order to find Mjolnir, Loki needed a way to travel to the realms at speed, so asked Freya for her magic cloak made of falcon feathers, which would allow him to fly, and she kindly obliged. Travelling to Jotunheimr, the realm of giants, Super Loki questioned King Thrym, who admitted to taking the hammer and hiding it behind the earth. The king refused to return it until Freya agreed to give her hand in marriage, and with this revelation, Loki soared back to Asgard to update his fellow gods, saying, "Trouble I have, and tidings as well. Thrym, king of the giants, keeps thy hammer, and back again shall no man bring it, if Freya he wins not to be his wife." Heimdall, the guardian of the Bifrost, suggested our god of thunder dressed up as Freya and take back what was his. Not a fan of drag, unfortunately, Thor objected, for he must remain manly at all times. Loki, though, would look to talk some sense into him. "Be silent, Thor, and speak not thus. Else will the giants in Asgard dwell, if thy hammer is not brought home to thee." So convincing were the words of the trickster, Thor agreed to the plan, and with this came a makeover worthy of RuPaul's Drag Race. Now all frayed up, Thor, face covered in a bridal veil to hide his unhideable ruggedness, alongside Loki, disguised as his maid, travelled to Jotunheim and gained access to Thrym's hall. A delighted Thrym welcomed his bride to dine in celebration of the upcoming wedding. Ever the lover of a feast, Thor demolished his dinner. An ox ate salmon, washing it down with 3 caskets of mead. Wary of this immense appetite, the king of Jotunheim began to question the legitimacy of his guest of honor. Loki, continuing with his good deeds, steps in with a "From food has Freya 8 nights fasted, so hot was her longing for Jotunheim." With a belly full of food and libido driven by booze, Thrym was ready for the ceremony and the delights that followed. Lifting the veil to steal a kiss, Thrym was slightly surprised by the appearance of Freya. Once again, Loki to the rescue. "No sleep has Freya had for 8 nights found, so hot was her longing for Jotunheim." Fair enough, King Thrym thought, and bringing the hammer out to consecrate the marriage, a giddy Thor took back his beloved Mjolnir and left, but not before putting an end to the lives of the whole wedding party. Thor smash! Ultimately, Loki sealed his fate with the gods when his mischievous ways would eventually get the better of him with the betrayal of Balder, son of Odin. Balder would dream of his own demise, as would his mother, and from these nightmares they summoned a Volva, a Viking witch, for answers. Confirming these fears would become a reality, his mother, Frigg, made every living thing in existence vow never to harm her son. All did except for mistletoe, which Frigg believed was so harmless it could never cause injury to her mighty son. Upon learning this, Loki couldn't help himself and decided it would be a terrific idea to make a spear out of mistletoe. I think we know where this is going. Unwilling to do the deed himself, the coward, Loki hands a spear to Hoder, the blind son of Odin and Frigg, also brother of Balder, and convinces him it'll be a hilarious joke to throw it at Balder. Without knowing the true nature of the weapon, Hoder agrees to do so, launching the mistletoe spear through the chest of his brother, ending him. Talk about the kiss of death. Hoder was sadly killed in his role, but Loki was not given the same luxury. In retaliation, he's pinned and bound to a pile of rocks using the entrails of his son, Nari. A venomous snake placed above him too, dripping poison day and night onto the face and body of the devious deity, causing pain so unbearable the foundations of Midgard would shake, thus explaining earthquakes. Loki remained bound until the events leading to Ragnarok played out. It is here when he's released and joins the fight against the gods, joining his children and the giants. His final act would be fighting against his former colleague Heimdall, in the form of a seal. Classic Loki. Both Loki and Heimdall died in this conflict, much like the rest of the inhabitants of the 9 Norse realms. Unlike my latest massage, There's no happy ending here, I'm afraid. But there we have it then, Loki. Let us know your thoughts on this fascinating character from Norse mythology, and also let me know what you'd shapeshift into if you had the ability to. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe if you're new here, as we release new content every week. If you're still with me, you may as well stop by Pantheon Apparel, our clothing brand. Here you'll find a wide range of clothing inspired by Norse, including Loki and other mythologies from around the globe. We ship worldwide and are rated excellent on Trustpilot. You'll find a link in the description. Check out our Norse playlist on the right here if you wanted to continue your journey in these realms, or alternatively, this video on the left here has been chosen by YouTube specifically for you. Thanks for tuning in today. See you on the next one.